I'm Jelena Wouters. This is Crash Course AP Art History, and today we're going to be talking about Earth's creation. Okay, so we're actually going to be talking about Emily Kame Kngwarreye, but I was too lazy to refilm this, so there's that. And the Hiapo cloth. First, I'm going to start off with some background information on Emily Kame Kngwarreye. Kngwarreye was, and still is, one of Australia's most prominent Indigenous artists. She was born in 1910 in a very small community in Central Australia called Utopia. Due to the isolation of the community, pure intuition and instinct often shined in art originating from this region. Quite unusually, her art career began in her 80s, but this didn't slow her down. She dabbled in batik, which is an Indonesian technique of dyeing cloth, but later found her stride in painting canvas. She produced over 3,000 paintings over the course of her 8-year career, averaging about painting a day. Her birthplace, landscapes, seasons, plants, and places of spiritual energy are just a few things Kngwarreye found inspiration in. She challenges the stigma around informal art education and artistic influence, as she grew up with barely any human contact outside of her community and was not formally educated. In fact, she could not read or write, and could not speak more than 20 words in the English vocabulary. Her popularity paved the way for the rise of Indigenous art and the defeat of the negative stigma surrounding it. This has propelled her to fame comparable to Jackson Pollock and Mark Rothko in a fraction of the time. Earth's Creation. Earth's Creation is a piece created by Emily Kame Kngwarreye that has 4 panels, which are combined 20 feet wide and 9 feet high. It is made with synthetic polymer paint on linen mounted on canvas, primarily utilizing yellow, blue, and red. Fluid and wandering strokes that are not specific are guided by structural patterns and spiritual forces to create an abstract piece symbolic of Kngwarreye's homeland. This piece is composed at a horizontal angle and an intimate composition, since Kngwarreye created this piece on the ground next to it, showing a relationship between her and the art piece. It abandons traditional forms of geometry and lines and instead utilizes dump dot composition, which uses the brush to pound acrylic paint onto the canvas to create layers of color and intense movement. First and foremost, this piece acts as a bridge of cultures and shows connection through cultural difference in the time of European imperialism. Kngwarreye puts Australia and Aboriginal culture on the map through this piece and thus displays the value of Indigenous culture. Further, the art challenges perspective because no matter where you look in the painting, your mind's eyes see something. Lastly, the art shows a connection between body and country, as Kngwarreye's deep connection with her culture and land is evident. This piece of abstract art is meant to depict the north-central desert region of Kngwarreye after the rains, traditionally called green time, depicted in the tropical rainforest and environmental feel. As mentioned, she uses her brush to pound the acrylic/polymer paint onto the canvas. The bright colors emerge as if they were plants or other vegetation engaged in certain movements. It shows the cycle of seasons in Australia and the natural lushness that exists there, showing Kngwarreye's reverence for the land. Kngwarreye was part of an Aboriginal group that refused to adopt British colonial culture during colonialism. She utilized traditional iconography and Western-style paintings to preserve Indigenous culture among imperialism. Kngwarreye was influenced by the culture she grew up in as well as the natural environment, which relates to her motivation to preserve this culture and the land she grew up on. Fun fact, in 2007, Earth's Creation was the first work by a female Australian artist to break the $1 million mark at auction. Untitled has been seen as a lyrical mapping of the country, symbolizing the desert in bloom, but could simply be a phenomenal abstract painting. Alhalkur, the country of Kngwarreye's birth, is shaped by a harsh desert. Alhalkur is the constant influence in Kngwarreye's art and is often depicted in abstractions of ceremonial markings, part of a ceremony called Awolyi, and the imagery of her country's flora and fauna. Big Yam Dreaming was created in 1995 to showcase the Kngwarreye. The Kngwarreye is the pencil yam that is native to Kngwarreye's home region, and this painting signifies the relationship between this crop and her birthplace, Alhalkur. The composition is a single and continuous stroke, symbolizing the view of Alhalkur from a planar perspective. The contrasting rhythms of angles, long stretches, and volatile lines signifies the roots of the vegetable and the cracks that form in the ground when it ripens. But this monochrome work could not simply be seen as a landscape, but a form of visual art. Hiapo cloth. This piece is decorated bark cloth, which is a textured fabric made out of densely woven bark of the paper mulberry tree. Creating bark cloth is a process done entirely by women. This process includes pounding the material flat with a wooden tool and sticking it together with paste from an arrowroot. Designs are then pounded in with a carving tool or stenciled on. Methods of making bark cloth were introduced by Samoan missionaries. Contrastingly to Samoan tapas, these are made in Kngwarreye and are freehand paintings. The animated freehand drawing process may represent mana, or the spiritual life force energy or healing power that permeates the universe, evident in Polynesian culture. Although no one really knows what it is made for, it is about the size of small clothing or blankets. The creative designs may signify a commercial purpose, but they may just be a product of pastime activity. Tapestries could function as a type of currency, as they could be exchanged for food, work, or services. Some traditional uses for tapa cloths include clothing, bedding, and wall hangings, and are also prepared for people of power, displayed on special occasions, and used to wrap deities. They were also used for ceremony or to designate status and could be worn during rituals, exchanged in marriage, and used to wrap babies in sacred objects. If a family has no tapa to give away, they are considered poor. Hiapo cloths are made in a rectangular or circular composition with abstract forms and plant forms drawn with fine black lines in a grid formation. These plant forms include patterns and motifs based on various plants native to the region. There is a recurrence of particular names that serve as the artist's signatures. There are dynamic but linear designs throughout the piece, and all pieces of this type of cloth are unique because the designs on a particular piece of tapa are unique to the maker's island, township, or region. Certain designs and textiles were designed for people with high social standing or rank, as important figures and high-ranking individuals would wear these decorated cloths at important stages in their lives. Lastly, different cultures and islands would present similar pieces of cloth to places they travel by boat. The Hiapo cloth comes from Niue, a small Polynesian island country located 1,500 miles northeast of New Zealand. This region is popular for limestone cliffs, coral reef dive sites, and whaling. It is located next to Tonga, Samoa, and the Cook Islands, which allowed for lots of trade with Christian missionaries. Samoan missionaries came to Niue in 1830 and brought Hiapo with them. These missionaries were against idleness and wanted people to produce crafts for sale, so the creation of these cloths began. Flowers and leaves are often depicted on these cloths since the making of tapa cloth was traditionally seen as women's art, as it is a type of weaving that works with soft materials. In fact, textiles were seen as a woman's wealth. Both of the pieces we have looked at today have veneration for their culture and land in a time of imperialism. The biggest takeaway from these two pieces is the intense saturation of culture that cannot be suppressed by colonizers, and the value of Indigenous and Aboriginal art styles and their unique perspective on the world.
A big thank you to all the wonderful people that made this video possible, and thank you for watching.